step is preparing the binding. I've prepared the quilt sandwich earlier. I overlocked the edges. I squared it up and overlocked the edges simply because it makes so much cleaner work. You don't have to have it overlocked. I preferably on a large quilt I don't do it, but when I have a small squares I always overlock. Now to prepare the binding, I cut my binding on 2¼ inch. I don't like 2½. I feel it's too wide. So 2¼ for my quilt is, I feel it's perfect. It's just got the right fullness and it looks 3/8 from the front. All my bindings are prepared on a table the way I like joining the seams, and I turn my bindings on the wrong side up. All my bindings are done the same way. I turn the corner, I flip the corner 45 degrees, press the crease, then I use Elmer's washable glue, and I will add a tiny amount of glue on the edge. Take the next strip of binding, I will put it on top of the first one, here we go, and I will press it. Takes a few seconds. What it actually does, if you open, it creates me a 45-degree crease, and this is my seam line. It holds enough together that when I go on a sewing machine, this will be sewn with the smaller stitches and cut away. So the whole strips, all of the strips, I do the same way. I will come back on the same one. I will fold the edge again on 45 degrees. Use the glue again. Take another strip. Try to have it nicely on top. Press. Now for this little quilt, we won't need more than 2 to 2¼ maybe. So I'll prepare 3. So the last one, I'm folding it again. Why I'm folding over the edge is because I've left the selvage on, and I don't like using selvage, so I'm folding it over a bit more. So the next step is glue again. There we go. Press. Now, if you have a large quilt, you probably will assemble between 6 and 11 of these. For today, I think three seams are fine, would be using. The next step would be going on a sewing machine, sew the seam with a smaller stitches than normal, probably 1.8. Sew them, press them open, and assemble the binding. Here we are on a sewing machine, Venina 720. It's very easy to use. To change the stitch, at the moment it's set on 2.5. That's way too long, so I'm gonna just get a stitch length on 1.8 right there. And that's all what you have to do. At the moment I haven't got number 37 foot, 1/4 inch foot on, but since I have a crease line on a fabric, the foot which is number 1 on will do Great. All what you have to do now is sew a seam. On a crease line. So machine does everything for you. It's an absolutely excellent machine to work with. I will go reverse, first 3 stitches, and then I will sew the seam. Reverse. And since we have a cutting tool, I'm cutting it. Excellent. So we'll do all of 3. That's the next one. Open up. There's a crease line. So simple. I like to kind of point the needle right there on the seam. There's beautiful control with the foot. So let's go reverse, couple of stitches, and reverse and cut. There we go. Right there into the seam, and my feet just adjust itself, so here it is. I'm gonna go reverse and cut. And here we go. The seam is lovely joint. And the next step is pressing the seams open. Back on a table, I am opening the seams up where I've previously had a glue on. I'm opening them up. I'm pressing the seam open. Then I'm folding them back again and cut 1/4 inch. And here we go. That's number 1. I will repress again. And you can actually see it's beautiful. Next one, the same thing. Releasing the glue piece, very easy. Press. And cut. Press it again, and I can do it straight from the right size because I've got a beautiful shoe on an iron which does not give me a shine. Number 3, nearly there. It's important that you open the seams where the glue has been. That's washable glue, so that will come out in a wash. And 1/4 inch seam. Next step, we come quite far. My next step is starching and folding the binding in half, and I usually just press that straight onto it as I go, fold the edge in half and press. I'm using the starch because I want my binding to hold together really nicely. So when I start stitching, it won't move around. It's going to be in one continuous piece. Okay. It takes a bit to dry, but what we're looking at is when you pick up your binding, you want two pieces to stick a bit together like so. So I'll continue finishing off the bind. I will just press the whole thing. Quite wet, so it will take a while. And I do prefer that when I'm folding towards me. That way I can see the edge really nicely, not from the top. When I come to the seam, we want it to have nice and flat. I'm going to actually transfer that this way. Now the next step is taking my quilt sandwich, and I'm going to make a decision on, it's pretty much square, so it doesn't really matter do I go top or bottom or wherever I start. I do like to have my seam somewhere in the middle, so we're going to aim for start preparing my bindings with the seam approximately somewhere in the middle. The first step what I do, I actually would leave approximately 4 inches. So if I can go that way and start gluing from this point, probably from this point here, so approximately 1/4 inch in, applying the glue. And I will position my binding nicely on the edge and press. See, this is my pressed binding. The next step is the corner, which is extremely important. I will apply glue first, because okay. With a corner, I always fold all the binding up on a diagonal, as you see, and it has to go parallel with the edge. Here we go. And I'm pressing that, creasing the crease. The next step is folding it down again onto it, positioning straight on the edge and making sure that you can just barely see the lower edge. You don't fold over or under. You have to make sure that the fold is, you can only see a smidgen of the quilt. And press. And continue all around. I tend to finish my large quilts, small quilts, all of the quilts in one go. Then I go on a sewing machine and I sew them. So here we go. Repeat the process. What I like about this type of binding is my bindings are always nice and straight, the same fullness, no waviness. The same thing again. You fold the binding with the edge. So if you would have had put the ruler, what I meant is, if you would have had a ruler and this is your edge right here, you want that edge to continue in the same from the edge up. So it's nice and straight. You press the fold, apply the glue, I'm checking that the corner is beautiful. Press it. Here we go. Corner barely seam the lower edge. Now, because I have a shoe on the iron, I don't have to worry about glossiness, which happens with normally if you don't have the protection on it. And it doesn't stain anything. Please. Nearly there. The last corner. For sure. Now we have a small opening here because we do have to have make a seam, so that will be enough. most important part is to get the corners right. And my favorite part of the binding is actually joining the seam. I used to dread that the most. I never knew how to do them. But since I've actually met Leonie from Westalee Rulers and saw how easy it is if you have this tiny gadget, you don't even have to think and it always comes out perfect. First, what you have to do is you want to know where you want your join, and I've made a decision here would be just perfect. So what you do is you meet the two edges like so. So you put them together and you press them. It's just folding the leftover bits and you fold them so they meet. That line is extremely important because that line is the fold line on a ruler. Here we go. The next thing what you do, I can actually open now a bit more because I've got plenty of room now. I am opening my binding, and as you can see, okay, we retrace the step again with a folding line. That was my folding line. So I'm gonna do a pencil line right there on a folding line. One and another one. So this is just a iron off white marking pencil. So nothing special. Here we go. Now this is mark. This is my mark. It goes all the way here. Now all what I have to do is the first fold has to be on my crease line. So with these rulers it's really lovely that I can actually butt them on that black edge right there. And can you see where my line is? That line has to match right there. So my cutting line is right here, right there. Usually I will have a rotary cutter and I will cut straight off. So I'll just move a little bit on my table and I'm gonna move on to the rotary cutter. There we go. Kind of fold the quilt a bit. Now here's like it actually, this is my line right there, right here. Right here. I'm taking my rotary cutter and I'm cutting it off like so. This is one side. Now on this side, of course, it's the opposite. I'm opening up, and all what you do is you position your ruler on the other side of the quilt. You see the line is, my line is there, and I know I'm gonna cut like the opposite way now. All done, left over to the side. And what it actually does, do you see? It actually will be joining like so. So all what I'm doing now, I'm folding the quilt and I'm going to go onto the sewing machine and I'm gonna sew the seam. If you want to pin, you can pin to make sure. I leave 1/4 inch on each side, and I'm going off to the sewing machine and sew the seam. Okay, my 1/4 is right there. Reverse. Reverse. And cut. And here it is, my seam, all sewn neatly. Now going back to the table, I will now fold the quilt so I can open the seam and press it. There we go. As you can see, it fits perfect. All what I'm doing now, I'm gonna put a little bit of glue in between to hold those two pieces together, and I'm gonna position the glue line here. And press. Press nice and flat, as you can see. Perfect. And that's how I use my technique on small or large quilts. The same way. You can hardly see where the seam is put together. Now I'm gonna go on a sewing machine and work it out, the sewing of the binding. I've got a leftover of my binding, and now I'm gonna work exactly the folding and the seam allowance which I actually want on my binding. And to achieve that, I like to fold my binding in 3. One is for the seam. I know it's a bit fraying fabric, but one is for the seam. And the second fold, I want an 8 left, like so, for my back. So I can cover the seam, sewing seam, with that 8, which you can see here on the quilt. Now, in order to have that sorted properly and knowing how wide the seam is, I'm pressing that. Now I haven't got, I will just correct that so I can actually exactly how I want it. Here we go. Now I'm opening up my crease. And I can see 2 lines. This one here is my stitching line. This is my back of the quilt, so I have to stitch on this stitching line. So I'm gonna go back on a sewing machine. If you have a 1/4 inch foot, sometimes that's exactly 1/4 inch. This is just a bit fraying fabric. But it's extremely important that you fold every time in 3 so you know exactly what the bindings should look like, and this is the width of the binding, and it's approximately 3/8. That's how I like them. Now I'm gonna go and test on a machine. Stitch length to 2.2. Right here, and I'm going to try to have my foot, okay, I'm gonna try to adjust my foot, that my foot sits with the edge of the binding, and this one pretty much, the needle is right in the center of my crease, so I don't have to change anything. But if my crease would have been more to the left, I would adjust that with the needle position, which is right here, and I would go, okay, I have to actually see which one, the needle position to change right in the center, at the moment is right in the center, but I would actually change that position and go either left or right, so it actually sits where you want it in a crease. So I'm gonna start stitching. I'm gonna position my foot with the edge of my bind and try to do a few stitches to see where it sits with the crease line. And I can just cut and have a good look. Now my crease line, it's a stitch away, so I'm gonna fold again to see if that is going to work the way I want it. And I feel like I can actually go and reposition my needle by one sliver, so it's just the one. Okay, we'll start again. I'm going to position again to the edge. Here we go. And then I'm going to go with the needle up first. And I'm going to go one movement of the needle. And that will just make enough cut. The difference is very slight, one needle position, but when I crease, that will make a perfect binding. So test done, I know it's gonna work, so I can start stitching away. It doesn't really matter where you start stitching. Position of my foot is right on the edge, and I can start. Okay. And no matter how good you are, I think you do need a help and holding the binding a bit, although it's stabilized with the glue. When you stitch, I prefer to have an awl right there to help me stay on track. Now we are coming to the first corner, and there is a crease line right there in a corner, right there. So our stitch has to stop right before the crease line, right there. I can see the crease line, so I'm coming close to it. One more stitch, and I'm reversing. And I'm cutting the thread. As you can see, crease line is right there, and my stitch stops right there. The next step, turn your work around and the same distance. Very important that you use the same distance. Start your binding again from the top. I do like to reverse a few stitches and keep on stitching all around. Now come into the second corner. If you can't see it properly, it's good to mark. So you can just take any pen, it's inside anyway, and you mark your crease line if you can't see it. Here we go. I can see now better. So I know I have to stop. Reverse. I'm checking. Could I have gone one stitch? Yes, I'm gonna go one more stitch further because I could see, and reverse again. And I'm cutting. See, it's right into the crease. Fold it back up and start. Reverse. If sometimes the little pleat wanting to occur, just lift your needle lifter and correct it. Lift it. Now the next step, you're right here. I'm gonna mark my reverse and cut. Here we go. Turning around again. And start again from the corner. Okay, I'm right in a crease line. Actually, I could do one more stitch, so I'm gonna do that again. Start again. pressed all around. I'm checking the stitch. Everything seems to be perfect, the same distance, and nice and even. I'm going back to my ironing board and prepare for the next step. Now here we are again. The next step, what I do is I press the binding. I press the binding from the top. Now when you have feathers and other things on a binding, you make sure that you don't really press and squash everything. On this piece I already pressed it flat before, so I'm not worried, but when you have other things you will have to be a bit careful not to flatten your work. So I like to crease that away from the quilt. It just makes it an easier fold. Now I'm turning the quilt onto the wrong side. And I'm trying to pull out the corners. And the simple thing is, I'm just going to pull them like so. Sometimes there's a bit of a mess going on with my threads, so that would be better off cut off. So I'm going to just pull my corner. I don't like using any tools, so I don't poke through the fabric because that happened before. So I just trust myself with my hands. And number 4. Go. Glue. Now, since I've already pressed it from the front, all what I want to do now is start folding my binding just over the edge of my sewing line. So what happened is, I wanted that edge to be covered. That's that 1/8 we left it when we folded the binding, and we knew that we needed an 8. So here we go. It's very simple. My binding is really going backwards, so it's really already folding. And now all what I need is to glue down the edges. So we'll start with the glue. I don't usually start in a corner. I just start a little bit away from it. And I glue the line just below the sewing line. Now on a large quilt you don't go too far away with the glue because it's either dry or it's hard to handle, so I do like 20 or 30 centimeter max, and I start folding my binding straight onto the line and pressing. Now there's a lot of this fraying of fabric. I don't worry too much because I can easily cut off that, or I just fold that into the fold. It takes a few seconds for the glue to stick, and here we are. And you continue till my first corner. Now I'm going to put the glue all the way across. Here we go. And try to get all this fabric. Okay. Now if you do get glue onto the fabric, just use some wet one or washcloth and just rub it off. It comes off quite easily and it doesn't stain. So I've done one side. I'm pretty happy. Now I'm going to check my corner and fold it first to see how nicely it comes. So I only press one side. Sometimes I prefer my corners to go up when I'm folding, but sometimes you really do have to have a good look which way it actually looks better. So I'm going to just fold a bit back by hand and have a look, and I'm happy with the corner the way it is. So I'm going to apply the glue. Just going to clean up a bit this mess here of my threads. I'm going to just do some 6 inches of glue. Now with the corner, I do prefer that the mitre really looks good. So I'm going to first fold across. And now I'm going to actually position my fold like so. So I can see that my corner looks good. So I'm going to just press it. There we go, to that point. It takes a few minutes, a few seconds. Now this is my back fold. I can see that glue, I've got a touch of glue, so I'm going to rub that off with a cloth. And I will actually stitch that corner down and make sure that it sits exactly on a line, like so. You can pin if you want to. Since I'm going to sew that corner down by hand, I don't think it's necessary because I'm going to actually sculpt that with a ladder stitch, front and back. So I'm happy with the way it is, and I'm just going to continue with the rest of the quilt. I hate threads. So this fabric I'm using for the binding frays quite a lot. Some, if you would have batik, that wouldn't be happening. So I do like to trim a bit. Don't like so much fluffy stuff. And I'm gonna just go all the way across with the glue. You can see how much I'm applying. And keep on folding. Now if you wouldn't have creased the front to the back, you could still do it and actually pull from the back. So it's I just like this step to be perfect. Here we go. Next corner, I will just cut the threads in a way. I'm going to check again because I've got so much threads happening. And this is a quilting stitch right there in a corner, so that's how it looks one side folded. I'm happy with that, and I'm going to apply the glue for the next 4 or 5 inches. And I'm going to fold this side first, right there onto the seam line. Okay. And now I'm going to fold the corner. It's very important that the miter happens exactly. So I'm going to just adjust from the front first, the way I like that miter to be, and come on the back and fold it. Sometimes, like with this corner, I feel that this fold should come first, and it happens quite a lot, and that fold comes next. So it's all kind of feel the corner, because I want the miter to really look perfection. I'm gonna go the opposite. So this has to be touch more folded, touch more. Here we go, and here we go. So I want them to meet. So I'm gonna put touch of glue there. And I know I want that to meet. And that's seam to sit right there. And here we go. I know it's got a bit of a glue on, but I will clean that up. This is my corner the way I want it, and the front is going to be restitched. So let's continue to the next corner. There we go. In the front. Yes, that's how I want it. All the way that way. Of course we have threads again. It's just our cutting. Now the next one. I don't like gluing into the corner because I'm going to stitch the corner by ladder stitch anyway, so I prefer that this 45-degree fold is the very important right here, that I can actually fold back. First I want to fold, it's harder to do on a camera. I want to fold that one over first to the seam. And now I'm gonna try to get that 45-degree, really doesn't want to go that way, so I will have to do it that way. The opposite. As you can see, I'm gonna do the opposite. Just press that way. And now I'm gonna get the 45 over that way. So it's a little bit over, and I'm going to fold that back till I got 45-degree. Just takes a bit of a fiddling. I should have really haven't pinned there. But my hands are full of glue, but touch more, because I want that 45 to be perfect. So needs a bit more that way. And here we go. That's what I want. You see? That's what I want. So I need a touch of glue now, because I haven't put any glue here. Okay. And making 100% sure. Here we go. Touch more in. So when I'm actually stitching the ladder stitch, I can pull that really neatly into the sharp point. Here we go. And my binding has been finished with the glue. Inspecting the front, seeing what I see and if I like, and I do like my binding is even. Every now and then I've got a tiny thread hanging, which is fine. It's going to be cleaned up. And it's ready for sewing. The next step, I don't need to do any gluing. I'm pretty much finished. All what I have to do is a ladder stitch and finish my corners and rub off the glue, which is, I like to use my wet ones. You just gently rub off, and I will do that after I've done my ladder stitch. Let's thread the needle. I'm actually using a bowen needle, and it's number 9, and I will only make single and I like to use my trusty cap, which is just a useful help when you pull your needle, and it gives you more grip. Now you can start with any corner, but we'll try which one do you want to do. Doesn't really matter. Let's do a nice one. This one is nice. This one here. This one here. You know. Okay. We'll start with the ladder stitch, and I usually start right. I bury my knot right there. Like so. And I'm actually going to just bury in. And I like to stitch, grab the top edge of my binding, like so, and then grab on a seam, right there on a seam. And I don't pull the thread till I'm actually having like 5 or 6 stitches. So another one. And it's called ladder stitch. I'm traveling a bit. Oh gosh, looks like my lights are actually hard to see. There we go. It's just the edge top. Next one. And I'm gonna now done like 5 stitches, and I'm gonna pull them to be invisible. So I'm continuing to stitch. Just a slightly above the seam line. Okay. I'm going to pull again, so it's visible. And we are coming to a corner. Takes a bit of a patience. On top. Of course, the thread do want to tangle sometimes. Okay. One more. See, I've now one more stitch right here, right in there, the next one, okay, right there. And now I'm going to pull those 5 again. See how it kind of pulls them in a straight line. And I'm going to start on my miter. Now the miter is done by ladder stitch as well, so my first stitch is right in that corner. And I'm going to go where I want my miter to go. So I've got next stitch right here on a crease. Now you can correct now your crease if it's not correct, because it's easy to do. So I know that my miter has to go there. Keep loose. See how I've got loose? Another stitch. Right there. And the last one right here in a where I want to finished. And now I'm going to gently, don't be too harsh because you break the thread and you have to redo it. So gently pull the miter together. You see how it actually came together really nicely? The miter is on a 45 degree. It came together. Now I personally go through the corner like so and come up right on the front like so. And I will now start my miter on the front. It's really important that your corners are stitched. So I've came through and I'm starting again the ladder stitch. The 45 degree crease here. It's really important that you keep the straight line with the stitches. That's my lower one. Go this one again. again, right there in the crease, nearly there, and one more stitch right there in the corner. And just grab the center of that seam like so. And now I'm going to gently pull. Do not break your thread. Do you see how it's pulled in? After I've pulled, I'm going to check on my table, and I'm going to take a piece of paper. It doesn't really matter what it is. A square corner of the paper is really good. And I'm going to position my binding right on top of that and see how straight am I. I like my corners to be square. And have a look. It hasn't been pressed down yet, but have a look. It's got a nice square edge. I've done the top and bottom stitching. Now I'm going to come through the front down. And I'm going to actually now pull this corner together. I've done the front and I'm really happy. Now I'm going to pull this corner really nicely together. And I'm starting the ladder stitch all over again on this seam. And I'm going to finish the whole binding. So here we go, another stitch. One stitch on top, like so. Another one right on the edge. Right, another one right here on this edge. It's really important that you grab this crease line. And let's go further. One more stitch. Okay. I'm going to gently pull the stitch. See how it's actually pulled together to create nice corner. Oh, see, that's what happened. If you are having too strong hands, that's what happened. But never mind, the corner is, I'm going to start again from the point and I'm going to finish off. But the next step, what I do is I take any wet ones. I do like wet ones, so I use them a lot. And I will gently rub off the glue, which it just kind of, I've messed it up here. And you just gently rub off that glue. It's good to actually have a tendency to do straight away. Here's the corner from the back. And we're going to look the front. And this is the corner from the front.